Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. My name is Brandon, and today happens to be my 35th birthday. So I figured the best way to celebrate that here on the channel would be to talk some movies. And finally, after planning to do this for like a year now, I'm going to finally do my lifetime of film. So 35 years means 35 different movies. So if you guys are not familiar with this, it's pretty popular right now on Instagram, or I don't know if right now, but recently it's been popular on Instagram. I saw the MovieBuffPaynes do this last year. And so basically what you do is from your birth year on to the present day. So in my case, I will be talking about 1986, the year I was born, all the way through 2021. And I'm going to pick one favorite from each of those 35 years. So I am really excited about this video because, like I said, it's been almost a year in the making now. I initially wanted to do like a top 35 films for my 35th birthday, but it's just impossible. Like I can't do it. So I'm going to do this instead. This is a happy compromise for my brain. So this is the route I decided to go. So before we get into this though, I want to give a couple of like ground rules that I followed while I made this list. So rule number one is that I am only picking one film from each year. I will not be talking about any honorable mentions or any like other ones that were up for debate for me. I'm simply going to talk about one film from each year. So if your favorite isn't there, it very well could have been one that I was debating between, or more likely, it's just one I haven't seen yet. And so ground rule number two is that this list is subject to change. This is right now, today, as I'm filming this. If you come back next week, next month, maybe even I'll do this next year, who knows? But if you come back again, this list could be notably different. There's no telling. That's why whenever someone asks, like, what's your favorite film of all time? That's such an impossible question to answer because for me, at least, it's all relative. And so it depends on, I don't know, so the factors in my life that are going on at that moment. It depends on movies I've seen recently, what I'm into right now. Am I in a horror mood? Am I in a sci-fi mood? Like, it just depends. And so completely relative. This is as of right now. And keep in mind that this is just a favorite from the year. It's not the favorite of the year because there are like some years you can't pick between two different movies because I love them both so much. So I decided I have to cut it down to one movie. So that's what's made the list this time. But like I said, next time it might be completely different. Another ground rule was that I was very important to me to not try to be interesting. No, don't try to be unique. Just be true to me. And so regardless of how big some of these titles are, which frankly, most of them are giant, like big blockbusters, but that's what I love. And so I wanted to stay true to me. I didn't pick like that kind of unknown indie comedy just because nobody else is talking about it. This isn't meant to be that type of video. This is simply a look at what my favorites are. So keep that in mind. You're going to see a lot of movies that you've probably seen already, which is totally fine. And so keep that in mind as we go through this list. So those were my ground rules coming into this list. And something I would ask you to keep in mind is that this is specifically my list. So you're probably going to disagree with some of my choices, and that is totally fine. What I would love to hear though, down in the comments below, please tell me what is your favorite movie or one of your favorite movies from the year you were born. I would love to hear what yours is because that'll give me some great recommendations that I can watch in the future. So yeah, I am really excited about this video. And if you guys do enjoy it, please give it a like down below. That really does help me out. But with all of that said, guys, let's not waste any more time at all. We have a ton of movies, 35 different movies to talk about today. So grab whatever beverage of your choice because I'm sure this one's going to be a little bit longer. And I should also mention, I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as I can because I don't want this to be an hour-long video. So here's hoping. We'll see. But with that said, guys, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right in to my lifetime of films for my 35th birthday. As I'm sitting here staring at all this giant stack of movies, I realized that I didn't really come up with anything to say about these beforehand, so I'll be winging it. Hopefully that's okay. And I will also mention that I just happen to own all of these either on Blu-ray or 4K. So all these movies I'm going to talk about today, I do have a physical representation of them, which is good, excluding, of course, 2021. That one just has not been released yet. But anyway, so let's get to it, guys. So 1986 is going to be Aliens, directed by James Cameron. You can see I do have the awesome Alien anthology here. And let me just pull it open real quick. I'm not going to do this with all of these, but this one's just really cool. So you see the picture there on the front is awesome. And then you have just that iconic image from the end of the movie. Like, this is just such a great movie. And I'll be honest with you, I probably like the original even more than the sequel, but the sequel is still fantastic. It is just filled with action and it's creepy as hell. Like, the addition of all these extra aliens was so awesome. Like, Bill Paxton is in there with some awesome one-liners. There are a bunch of just great one-liners in Aliens. And so this movie has just always been a favorite of mine since I first watched it years and years ago. So yeah, the first one on my Lifetime of Film list has to be Aliens from 1986. My 1987 pick is one that I own on the Criterion Collection, but it's actually still sealed, so I haven't watched this version of it yet, but I've seen the movie more times than I can count at this point. This is from 1987, The Princess Bride, directed by Rob Reiner. So this is a movie that just gets more charming and more sweet every single time I watch it. I never stop laughing. It is such a funny movie, but it has such a big heart. Like, I love the relationships that are built here. The acting is amazing. Like, the character interactions, the relationships that are built they're just so fun to watch. Andre the Giant in his role is just so sweet and charming. Like, I can't get enough of it. So I love this movie, and it's one that I remember watching for the first time in like choir class in high school, and I really liked it then, and I love it every time I see it, every time I see it is what I'm trying to say. So from 1987, I had to go with The Princess Bride, directed by Rob Reiner. I went with a relatively newer favorite of mine for 1988, and this is one that I watched maybe for the first time, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, but I loved it the first time I saw it, and I've liked it even more on repeat viewings. This is from 1988, Die Hard, directed by John McTiernan. This is just such an awesome action movie. There are just some incredible performances here. You have Bruce Willis, of course, in the lead role, who just plays an iconic character. And then you have Alan Rickman in the bad guy role, and he is just awesome. Like, it is one of my favorite villains in an action film. He is so great in this movie. The set pieces are incredible. The 4K disc, I will mention, looks so good on 4K on my set. So this is just one that I love watching this over and over again. And so this one had to be my pick for 1988. Die Hard, directed by John McTiernan. I like to refer to my 1989 pick as kind of the one that started it all for me when it comes to comic books and superheroes, because of course I'm talking about Batman, and this is directed by Tim Burton. So this was one of those VHS tapes that my uncle had up north, and there was only a certain number of them that he had up there, so I would always watch like the same ones over and over again. 2 of those were Batman and its sequel, Batman Returns, and so this just has a special place in my heart because of that. But watching it, more recently, it's so good. Like, the set design by Burton is so memorable. The colors, the way they pop, mixed with that muted dark Gotham, it's done so well. Forever and always, Michael Keaton will be my Batman, but I've loved many since him, but I really love Keaton as Batman. And so this is just one that will forever be a favorite of mine, and so I'm happy to add it to this list. So from 1989, Batman, directed by Tim Burton. From 1990, we have a family favorite for most people, I would imagine, and one that I've always enjoyed since I watched it when I was a kid. But watching it more recently, I realized how good this movie actually is. The soundtrack for this movie alone is just excellent. I'm talking about Home Alone with Macaulay Culkin, and this one is directed by Chris Columbus, who I think is just an excellent director. He has done so many great works and doesn't get referenced, I don't think, nearly as much as he deserves to, because he's awesome. But yeah, this is just one of those classics that I watched ever since I was a little kid, and it stuck with me. And like I just mentioned, watching it more recently, I've just really appreciated not only that it's like a fun family movie, but it's just a genuinely well-made film. From the script all the way through to, like I already mentioned, the music, everything that they do in the house, just the gags with the villains, it's awesome. And those 2 villains are icons in my mind. Like, they are just iconic. And so this has always been a favorite of mine as well. And so for 1990, I am going with the Chris Columbus directed Home Alone. My 1991 pick is also from the Criterion Collection, and this is one that's still sealed, so I need to watch this version of it, but I've seen this a number of times as well. This is directed by Jonathan Demme. We have The Silence of the Lambs. So Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins is just one of the most legendary film duos of all time in my eyes. This is kind of one of those horror movies that made it big. It made it so big that it's not often referred to as a horror movie. It's often just called a thriller or a psychological thriller, but there's definitely horror elements here. So if you want to call it a horror movie, definitely go for it. But yeah, so this is just one of those movies that I watched not super young, but maybe, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago for the first time. And being someone who's always been into the true crime world, I found this one fascinating. And I just love the way that these characters are built. And of course, it goes on to the sequels, which I've actually never even seen the sequels. I've seen, what was it, Manhunter, I guess, that came before this, but I've not seen the sequel. So I definitely need to get to those because I like this one so much. So yeah, this is one that everyone needs to see. Required viewing in my eyes. So from 1991, directed by Jonathan Demme, The Silence of the Lambs. My 1992 film is one that if you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago if this was my favorite from the year, I wouldn't even have considered it in the running at that point. But I watched this maybe a year ago now, maybe, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago now, I guess. And I realized just how excellent this movie is. And so I had to run out. I watched it on streaming, so I had to run out and grab the Scream Factory release, which I do have here. You can see this one is also still sealed, so I haven't gotten to this version of it. But I've seen this movie, I want to say, like 3 times now, and it gets better every single time I watch it. This is one that I think is, honestly, I would call it underrated because I know it is appreciated, but I don't think it gets appreciated as much as it deserves. And I know it took me a few viewings really to catch on to what was going on here, but just the setting, this early 90s Chicago landscape that they use is like dirty and gritty, but in a different way than you would see like from New York or even LA. And it's just so uniquely Chicago. I love that about it. So it has just an awesome setting. In our lead role here, Tony Todd is remarkable as Candyman. He does such a great job being this eerie kind of omnipresent character. It's so well done. And then what's her name in the lead role? Virginia Madsen. She's so excellent in her leading role here. I don't know. There's so many images that just stand out to me. Coming through the wall with through the mouth mural or the graffiti on the wall. The music in this is what I appreciated the most this time around, though. The score is haunting and I love it. It is just an awesome movie. So this is a horror film that I think if you maybe seen it once, maybe give it another shot and see if it's you like it better, because I know it took me 3 times to really love this movie, but now I think it is one of the more underrated, especially from the early 90s. So from 1992, I'm going with Candyman, and this one is directed by Bernard Rose. Next up is what I would consider an all-time classic. This is just one of the best of all time. This is from 1993. We have Jurassic Park, directed by Steven Spielberg. What's most remarkable about this film is just how well it holds up. Every time I watch it, I'm amazed that this is not a newer film. The fact that this is from 93 is just insane to me, because the special effects here are genuinely better than 90% of what we get today. That mix of that practical effects with some, of course, other special effects in there as well. But it's just done seamlessly and so remarkably. Spielberg had a wonderful eye for creating these dinosaurs, and that's really why it holds up so well. It just feels real. It feels creepy when you're seeing some of these dinosaurs in action, and so that's why I love it. I actually just recently read the novel that this is based off of. Recently, that was actually the beginning of last year, now that I think of it, but it was different, but it was still good. And I see kind of how he took that adult novel and turned it into a more family-friendly affair with Jurassic Park here from 93. So this is one of the best. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it, because you know it, you've seen it, and I'm sure you love it. So from 93, directed by Steven Spielberg, Jurassic Park. From 1994, I have, shockingly, my only Tarantino film, I think, on this entire list, which is kind of crazy to me because he's one of my favorites, but I couldn't pass up putting Pulp Fiction on this list, of course, directed by Quentin Tarantino. So this is a movie that just wowed me the first time I saw it, and I only saw it for the first time maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I was in grad school, and just the way he manipulates time in this, kind of the nonlinear storytelling, was something that I'd not seen previously, at least that I recalled at the time. And it was just so remarkable. So this is one of those excellent crime gangster films, but with so much comedy in there as well that you wouldn't expect. I don't know. There's just so many iconic moments from this movie that stand with you forever. At least they do for me. And so, yeah, I love this movie. It doesn't get much better than Pulp Fiction, in my opinion. This is just so damn good. And so from 1994, the Tarantino classic, Pulp Fiction. My pick for 1995 is a movie that I used to watch on loop back when it was on VHS and I was younger. This is directed by Steven Brill. This is called Heavyweights. So this is one that I just related to these characters so hard because I was always a big kid. And so, you know, they were going to fat camp, dealing with health issues, weight problems. I always dealt with that. And so I just connected with this movie and watched it again and again. Ben Stiller here in this like creepy almost role, but hilarious, over the top, just ridiculous Ben Stiller. It's excellent. This is comedy gold. It is so great for family viewing, and I cannot wait to show this to my daughter. Hopefully she doesn't have the same problems I did and doesn't quite relate as well. But yeah, this is just an awesome movie that I am so happy to talk about anytime I get the chance. So one thing I want to mention before I move on is that I now look back and see why I liked it so much. It's because it's written by Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow and Steven Brill. So of course I liked it. It's an Apatow film. Like, Apatow's one of my favorites. So yeah, love this movie then, and I love it more now. So Heavyweights is my 1995 pick, directed by Steven Brill. 1996 was another game-changing film for me, just because I was always a fan of horror, but like really in 96 with the release of Scream, directed by Wes Craven, it just took things to a whole new level, and that became my genre at that point. I love Scream. I always dressed up as Ghostface for Halloween, ever since the movie came out for like the next 5 or 7 years, however long it was, and it's just a classic to me. That opening scene will never get old. It is excellent. The way that bait and switch that they pull with Drew Barrymore's character, like, it's a brilliant movie. I have always loved it since I saw it on day one, and I will never not like this film. So Scream is my 1996 pick, and like I said, this was just what got me into slashers, and I never looked back. So 1996, Scream, directed by Wes Craven. I know I said I own all of these on Blu-ray or 4K, and I do, but my Blu-ray of this is with a couple other movies, and so you don't really get the poster, which frankly, you don't get the real poster here, but at least you get an image of the movie. So from 1997, I Know What You Did Last Summer. This was another one. I watched Scream, and then I watched I Know What You Did Last Summer. That 1-2 punch, that 1-2 slasher punch in the mid to late 90s there, that really set me on a course that I've still not gotten off of. I love horror movies, and these are two films. These two films are reasons why. So this one, of course, you know, given the age, it was a coming of age film for me, of course, because Jennifer Love Hewitt is in this, who was like my very first crush. I absolutely loved her. There's an amazing scene in the second movie that my younger self liked even more. But either way, this is just an amazing film. I know it is a knockoff, really, of Scream. It was created because Scream was popular, but it's still done so well. And so this one, well, who was this directed by? I don't even know. Jim Gillespie directed I Know What You Did Last Summer. And so, yeah, this is just one that I will always like. I know it's not loved as much as Scream, but to me, they're kind of 1-2. I like them both a hell of a lot. So I Know What You Did Last Summer, directed by Jim Gillespie, is going to be my 1997 pick. For 1998, I moved away from horror for this pick, and this is one that just rocked me the first time I saw it. It was so emotional, and I don't really know why. It's just beautifully done. This is The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey, and this is directed by Peter Weir. So this is a film where, like, the premise was always fascinating to me. It's essentially like, what if you were living in a world that was created specifically for you? You were the, like, unknown star of a reality TV show, and that's what's going on with Jim Carrey's character here is he doesn't know that he's this like worldwide superstar. He's just living his life until one day he starts to notice that things are a little bit strange. And so it just picks up from there. And it is a beautiful film about, like, I don't know, who you are when you're in front of people, who you are when you're by yourself. It's just so beautifully done. I don't know what else to say about it, I guess. If you've not seen this one for whatever reason, you owe it to yourself. Jim Carrey is a phenomenal actor, and there's actually another film that I'm looking at right now that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes that really shows his range that he has. He's awesome. When he's doing his more dramatic roles, his serious roles, he's even better. So check this one out if you haven't seen it. So from 1998, for me, it has to be The Truman Show, directed by Peter Weir. So let's get a little bit goofy here with 1999. This is a favorite of mine. I love this stupid shark movie. This is directed by Rennie Harlin. It is Deep Blue Sea. I have it here with the triple feature, the Samuel L. Jackson triple feature with Snakes on a Plane, which is also very good. And then Long Kiss Goodnight, I've actually not seen yet. But anyway, the reason I bought this specifically was for Deep Blue Sea because it is a favorite that I needed in my collection. This is basically about smart sharks and how you handle them. In this underground like laboratory essentially where they're studying these sharks, and it is just over the top. Sure, is it ridiculous? Yes, but there are some awesome moments in this. Like LL Cool J is in this and he's so good. I don't know, it's just one of those like feel good movies to me. Every time I watch it, I love it. So I have no shame that Deep Blue Sea is going to be my favorite from 1999. For 2000, we have a film that is the first on this list so far that I actually didn't like it the first time I watched it, but then really started loving it on repeat viewings. This is, with Christian Bale, American Psycho. And this one is directed by Mary Harron. So this is, like I said, I didn't love it the first time I watched it. I didn't get it at all the first time I watched it. And so I just didn't enjoy it. But then watching it again, I really enjoyed it. I actually read the novel that this is based on, written by Bret Easton Ellis, and I like the movie better. The novel is absurd and just disgusting in virtually every way, but the movie does it better, in my opinion. And so Christian Bale is as psychotic as you get, and he does it so well. The music choices here with some of the mixed with the action, Huey Lewis and the News, like it's just so cool and messed up and bloody, and it's so good. And so that's why I have to pick American Psycho for 2000. And this is one that I can't recommend watching it more than once enough, because you get different things on repeat viewings. You really pick up the humor in this movie as you watch it more and more. At least I did. It took me a couple viewings to get the humor. So I watch it again if you haven't seen it in a while. American Psycho, directed by Mary Harron. 2001 is going to be my first animated film on this list, and frankly, it's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. This is directed by Pete Docter. This is Monsters, Inc., and I have the really cool 3D lenticular there, which is awesome. But anyway, this is a movie that I cannot get sick of. I've watched this more times than I can count, and I love it every time I watch it. It's just this relationship, and I think the most recent viewing was the most poignant to me, or the most moving, because I watched it after I had my daughter. And so watching like Boo, the relationship with Boo between these guys is so heartwarming and charming. Like I don't know how else to describe it, I guess, but it is just sweet and sincere and genuine, and it's just something you need to see if you haven't, which you probably have, but I don't know. The voice acting on this is stellar. The talent is ridiculous. You have John Goodman and Billy Crystal as Mike and Sully, of course. And then there's just so many more on here. I'm forgetting all these names, but Randy Newman has the music. Like, it's just a beautiful movie that I love so much. And so that's why I'm happy to put Monsters, Inc. on my list for 2001, directed by Pete Docter. By Pete Docter, excuse me. My 2002 pick is one of my favorite films of all time, period. Without a doubt, in my top 5, maybe in my top 3. I don't know for sure, but this is from M. Night Shyamalan, and this is Signs. So this is a movie that is not something that I would look at and think that I would enjoy, but boy, do I love it. We actually did this in episode 100, our live episode of the Cinefessions podcast, whatever, 5-6 years ago, whenever it was. And this was my pick because it's one I've always wanted to talk in depth about. I saw this movie in theaters 3 times, and I always screamed at certain points. And when people were walking out of the theater, my buddy always tells this story. When we were walking out of the theater, somebody said, like, that movie sucked. The only good part was that little girl screaming. And of course, they were talking about me, but I don't know. I love this movie. It always creeped me out. I always considered it a horror movie because it's just genuinely terrifying to me. The moment, like, where it's like that found footage moment where the alien walks across the screen. Goosebumps just thinking about it. I will never forget the first time I saw that in theaters. I was terrified, and it was amazing. I love this movie. So the reason that you might not think I would like a movie like this, or that at least I would think that, is because there is a really strong religious message here that's really played up throughout the entire film. And that's not my cup of tea at all, but it's just done in such a smart way, I think. It's intertwined with everything that's happening. And so it worked for me. Regardless of my thoughts on religion, I love this movie. Mel Gibson is fantastic in this. And this is really when Joaquin Phoenix became one of my favorite actors of all time. Like, it's awesome. Abigail Breslin is in this. My daughter's name is Abigail. Coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. But yeah, Signs from 2002, one of the greatest of all time in my eyes. And I know virtually nobody shares that opinion, but that's okay. So from M. Night Shyamalan, Signs. Next up is the reason I will always give a remake a chance, because this one blew me out of the water. Let me tell you what it is. This is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Of course, this is a remake of the classic, the original. But this is directed by Marcus Nispel. And I remember the very first time I saw the trailer for this movie. It was one of the most remarkable trailers I'd ever seen at the time. The way they used, like, the theater was pitch black, and they just used these flash bulbs that sounded like they were coming from different parts of the theater. It gave me chills the first time I saw that trailer, and I knew I had to be there day one to see this movie, and I'm so glad I was, because it is just... oh man, it is dark. It is bloody and brutal. And Jessica Biel, what's not to love there? This is such a fantastic horror remake. And it really kind of set the bar for me for remakes. And it's the reason like I said, I always give a horror remake, or any remake really, a chance, because they can be this good. Like, this is as good as they could potentially be. And so because of that, I'm so happy that I ended up watching this movie, and I love it. It came at the perfect time. I was in high school. I would have been like 17 when this came out, I guess. And so this was really the start of the torture era, maybe a year or two before this, but this really kind of helped jumpstart that. And so, yeah, this is an all-time favorite of mine. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003, directed by Marcus Nispel. All right, so now we're up to my 18th birthday here, 2004, the year I graduated high school. And this is a movie that I watched for the first time maybe 6 or 7 years after it came out, but it's one that I consider another one of my all-time favorites, period. This is just a beautiful romance, but it has a sci-fi element to it as well, so it's just like right up my alley. Another one where Jim Carrey is playing in a serious role. I'm just going to show you now. This is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The first time I watched this movie, when it ended, I literally started it again and watched it again. And then throughout that entire week, I put it on to go to sleep to every single night, because it was just amazing. It hit me in a way that I never would have expected it to. I wasn't going through a breakup or anything like that. I was with my now wife at the time. It was just so emotional to me. I guess I was away from my family because we were at grad school, so maybe I was just in a different emotional state than I would have been normally, and so it hit me in a different way. But I don't know, just this story of this man trying to forget the woman who broke his heart is absolutely stunning. Jim Carrey, this is my favorite Jim Carrey role, without a doubt. He is so good in this. And then you have Kate Winslet in here too, who is just as good. Those two together are, I don't know, they're so genuine on screen together. Their chemistry is wonderful. But then you have in the supporting roles, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, and Elijah Wood, and they are hilarious together, and they do such a good job in this as supporting cast. I cannot recommend Eternal Sunshine enough. I know I've probably hyped it up a little bit too much for you because I knew nothing of it coming into it and was just blindsided, like a punch to the face. It hit me in all the right ways. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. This one is directed by Michael Gondry. This is one of the greatest films ever made in my eyes, so definitely recommend this one. Moving from one of the greatest films ever in Eternal Sunshine over to my pick for 2005, we have a Bruce Willis action movie that I've talked about a couple times on this channel. This one is directed by Florent Siri. This is Hostage. So I know what you're thinking, like, how could that be a favorite? Well, to me, this is one of the more underrated action movies that I've ever seen. Nobody really talks about this film, and I love it. The first time I ever saw this, I think I've told this story before, but the first time I ever saw this was on my uncle's broken television set, his full screen, like old tube TV, very old, like from the 60s or 70s. And it was actually in black and white because the color was broken for some reason. So I watched this movie in black and white, and I will never forget that experience. Now, I've seen the movie how it was intended to be seen multiple times since then. And I've actually read the novel by Robert Crace that I read last year, I guess it was. And the movie is so much better than the book. The book is good, but the movie is so much better. So this is just another one of those action films that I think is totally worth the time. It is fun. Bruce Willis plays like an old hostage negotiator who left because of an issue that he ran into. So he's running this small town police department now. And then this really crazy situation pops up that involves his entire family and a hostage situation. It is just really well done. Some of the shots in here, some of the cinematography, I think, is really unique to kind of this era of the action movie, at least. And so, I don't know, I think this one's worth watching for sure. So, but directed by Florent Siri, I have to go with, for 2005, Hostage. My 2006 film definitely needs a 4K release very soon because this movie would look amazing in 4K, but I have the Blu-ray here in a double feature. This is Children of Men, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who of course is a very famous director now and just one of the greats out there working, but I do have this in a double feature with Repo Men, which I have not seen. I cannot imagine it's nearly as good as Children of Men though, but this is the movie that I've probably only seen twice, so I don't think I've seen this one nearly as much as the rest of the films on this list, but it's like I watched it just last week. Like, it is an amazing film that has moments in it that have stuck with me since I saw it in theaters back in 2006 when my friend dragged me to the theater to see it when I had no interest in it. But yeah, so like there is a scene, an action sequence that has stuck with me since theaters that I don't think will ever leave me. It was such a simple, small moment that plenty of films probably have done, but it was the first time I'd ever seen it. Is the camera was moving, following our character along, trying to get from point A to point B without getting killed, and the blood and debris actually sticks to the camera lens, and they leave it there. Like, it's not like they're brushing it off, or obviously you wouldn't brush it off. Like, it's not like they used a different take or anything, right? Like, they kept it there, and it was just so moving to me. It made it feel so visceral, and the film was already had already grabbed me by that point, but that really just took it over the edge, which sounds so silly when I say it, but it's just like there's some moments when you're watching films that will stick with you. They could be the smallest things, but they're those like cinematic moments that really express like why you love this art. At least that's how I see things sometimes, and that's one of those moments. It's just, this is how good film can be, and that's why I love it so much. So Children of Men is excellent. It is a dystopian tale basically about the fact that no women can get pregnant, and so the population is dying, but then of course something happens and you follow a story from there. But see the movie. If you've not seen it, see the movie. It is brilliant. Children of Men from 2006, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. For 2007, we have another one that I would have to fit in my top 5 without a doubt. This is a David Fincher classic, in my opinion. This is Zodiac, and I have the very, very cool 2-disc director's cut edition here that has like the envelope that the Zodiac sent in, a replica of that, obviously. Like, just so cool. Just an awesome release. But anyway, this is another one that it needs a 4K release yesterday because it will look so good on there. I remember the opening scene in this film was was so awesome to me. Just that, like overlooking the bay, obviously in the San Francisco area, overlooking the bay and seeing the fireworks go off, and then just this horrific event happens to open the film. It stuck with me, forever. And it was one of those that will stick with me forever. It is just so well done. From beginning to end, I love this movie. I remember seeing this in theaters, and toward the end, obviously there's a big time jump, and I remember people like laughing and complaining. I was like offended that this was happening, and it was the first time I'd seen it, but I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you laughing? Like, this is just a way to get the ending of this story. Like, it's not funny. Like, this is I was so gripped that like I was offended that people were kind of mocking it for what it was doing at the end there. But this to me is my favorite Fincher that I've seen so far. I've not seen all of his work, but I don't know how it's going to top this. I am a true crime addict, and this is based on a true crime. I have read the book by Robert Graysmith that this movie is based off of. Again, I like the movie better. The book is quite long. Not my favorite true crime book by any stretch, but it's interesting. It's a good supplement. So if you do love the movie, you might want to check out the book. But for my money, the movie is really what you should check out because it is just one of the greats. One of my favorites, Zodiac, directed by David Fincher. From 2008 is another one of those movies that the first time I watched it, I didn't actually like this movie at all. I didn't know what to expect, or I guess I had wrong expectations going into this movie, and I was watching it in a theater that was just packed and people were talking to the screen. It was just not a good experience, but on repeat viewings, for whatever reason, I decided to rent it from Blockbuster when it came out, and I loved it the second time I watched it, and I've seen it more times than I can count at this point, and I love it every time. This is one of the main reasons I love home invasion films. We have The Strangers. And this one is directed by Brian Bertino. Liz Tyler, Scott Speedman star in this as a couple who are like, they're going through something. And so then they end up going to this essentially like a isolated home up north is what I always think of. But just a home that is separated from the rest of society. And all of a sudden they get the doorbell rings or a knock at the door, whatever the case is. And this person is there asking for somebody who doesn't live there. And then it just picks up from there. And it is just home invasion done at its best. I've yet to see a home invasion film that I've liked more than The Strangers. And I've seen a good number of home invasion films. Inside is probably like number 2 on my list. The original, not the remake. The remake is atrocious. The original is phenomenal. Anyway, that tangent aside, The Strangers is excellent. Just the characters are iconic to me in my eyes. The sequel I thought was so awesome too, which I know gets so much hate. It is a much different movie, but it's still awesome. So if you have not seen The Strangers and you are into horror, check it out. It is a slow burn home invasion film that is almost a character study of sorts, if you want to use that term. But it's just one of my favorites. So from 2008, The Strangers, directed by Brian Bertino. My 2009 film is one that I watch on virtually every Halloween since it came out because I love this movie and it is just tailor-made for the Halloween season. This is directed by Michael Dougherty, I believe is how you would say his last name. This is Trick or Treat. So this is an anthology horror film, and it's my favorite anthology horror film. Now, mind you, I've not seen some of the classics. I haven't even seen Creepshow. But until I see those, this one is my favorite. And I love like the through line here of Sam, our main character, our kind of main villain, as we go through this. It's just awesome. Like, it is hilarious at points. It is super gruesome and bloody at points. There's just so many really cool stories in this that make this one of the best horror anthologies I've ever seen. It is one that if you have not seen it, watch it on this Halloween, please. It is so good. So from 2009, directed by Michael Dougherty, I have to go with Trick or Treat. Going back to the animated world for 2010, I have to put in Toy Story 3 on this list because this is one that I watched with my buddies in theaters and was like, my now wife was with me too, and I was just crying at the moment in this. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And I was trying to hide it because I didn't want to, others to see me crying. But yeah, this is just such an emotional roller coaster of a film for me. And we watched this one relatively recently as well, and it still holds up as just one of the best in this incredible series. And so the characters, like, they're so established by this point, but you get these new characters in at the daycare that are just evil in all the right ways. Like, it is such a beautiful film that I cannot recommend enough. So for 2010, another animated film, Toy Story 3. And I forgot to mention, but this one is directed by Lee Unkrich. For 2011, I have to go with the culmination of one of the greatest film franchises of all time. I'm talking about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, directed by David Yates. Of course, I have the 4K box set here. I actually have a full rank and review of this box set of all these films on the channel here, so check that out if you're interested to hear kind of my deeper thoughts on this. But this is just, like I said, one of my favorite franchises ever. We watched it recently here, just within the last few months, and it holds up so well. The finale, though, is just the definition of epic. The way that everything comes together just works so perfectly in my eyes. The effects on this movie are incredible. We've grown to love these characters over the 8 films. I love this franchise and I love this movie. Though I did not put that one at my top slot in my rank and review, it was up there. It was one of my top 3, I think. Like, it is fantastic. Maybe even number 2 now that I think of it, but it's just such a wonderful film. So you have to watch all 7 movies in front of it, but it's totally worth it once you get to part 2. So one of my favorites from 2011 has to be Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, directed by David Yates. This film from 2011 has a special place in my heart because I watched it with the same people that I saw Toy Story 3 with that I talked about, but this was actually the last time I ever saw all of those people because it was my grad school classmates, and it was like a couple weeks or maybe a week after we'd all graduated. And so we were getting ready to go our separate ways, but we all stayed back to watch this movie. We did a marathon of the entire phase 1 leading up to it at my house, like the week before it came out. And then we saw this in theaters. And it's just one of, like, I don't know. For me, it not only does it hold a special place in my heart because it is a memory of these people who I became great friends with at that time, but we all went our separate ways across the country, so we just haven't seen each other since. Not only that, but I laughed so hard throughout this movie and cheered throughout this movie. I think we went to like the midnight showing of this, and it was just a remarkable experience that elevated an already incredible film to even bigger heights. And so every time I watch this movie since, I remember that. And I just think how amazing this was the first time I saw it, and I don't like it any less on repeat viewings. It is still a special superhero movie in my opinion. I loved phase 1. Like, it was definitely my stuff back then, and it still is, frankly, as you'll see as this list goes. But this was kind of the one that set the superhero movie up to be just some of my all-time favorites. I think it does it so well, building up to this point and then bringing these characters together. Joss Whedon, obviously we know more about him now as a person than we did back then, but regardless, I think the script on this is just awesome. I laugh so hard. I laugh, I cheer, I just get so emotionally invested in this film. I love the Avengers, which is why it is my pick for 2012. So by 2013, I was completely done with grad school and we moved back home to my hometown. And for whatever reason, I was probably just busy trying to find a job and so on. I didn't get to theaters to see this film, but I bought it when it came out on Blu-ray 3D and I fell in love with it just like I did the original. We have Monsters University, and this one is directed by Dan Scanlon. For my money, the quality between Monsters Inc. and Monsters University does not deter at all, or does not drop at all. I think Monsters U is just as good as Monsters Inc. We are following, obviously, the same set of characters for the most part, but we get this university setting, which is just fun. It is a prequel to Monsters Inc., and so you're seeing how these characters met each other, and they're not good friends to start. And so watching their friendship develop felt so awesome, because you know where it ends up in Monsters Inc. This is just Another film that I would, I'd put this up there with Monsters, Inc. as one of the best animated films I've ever seen. It is a beautifully told story with just some of the best animation. The Blu-ray 3D on this is still one of the best Blu-ray 3D discs that I've ever watched. I think it's just awesome. It pops so well. It looks great in the format. So if you have access, definitely check this one out on Blu-ray 3D. But yeah, for my money, Monsters U, just as good as Monsters, Inc. So this one ends up on my list for 2013, Monsters University, directed by Dan Scanlon. I'm going to try to be really quick with my 2014 pick because I have a full review of this on 4K here on the channel if you want to hear my full thoughts, but I have to go with Godzilla. Like, I love this movie. It was one of my favorites the year I watched it, and then even watching other things since then. Like, I love this movie so much. I can't have anything usurp it at this point. And so, from 2014, directed by Gareth Edwards, Godzilla. This is a really fun reboot of this series that you get a lot of human characters in here. Yes, you do. But you get a ton of really big monster action as well. Big kaiju action. And so, again, my full thoughts, check out my 4K review, but for me, for 2014, Gareth Edwards, Godzilla. It took me more years than I would like to admit now to get on the hype train for this movie, but I finally watched it last year and I can't go back now. It is amazing. This is Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller. So this is essentially like a 2-hour chase film, and it is so badass. The action pieces in here are incredible. Right from the opening, you get just some of these really cool moments. I remember on the 4K disc, the Dolby Atmos track on here is awesome. There's a car that flies over ahead of our character to start, and it just sets the pace right there, and it doesn't let up for 2 hours. This movie is as badass as you heard it is, and so check it out if you haven't seen it. From 2015, Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller. So I'm going to be honest, these next few picks here probably aren't going to be super popular, but that's totally fine. I love all these movies, obviously. So for 2016, I have to go with a film that I saw it in theaters and I liked it. And then I actually ended up reading the prequel to this movie earlier this year, and I rewatched it again on 4K, and I loved it. It is excellent. This is Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. And so this is essentially it's the prequel to Episode 4, where we basically find out how these characters got the blueprints for the Death Star. And so it is a beautifully shot film. I should also mention this is directed by Gareth Edwards as well, so he gets 2 movies on my list, which is really cool. The other one being Godzilla, of course. But yeah, so this is beautifully shot. Some of the landscapes here just look so amazing in 4K. But really, it's the story that drives this entire thing for me. I love these characters. I think they are just so well drawn. Now, mind you, I did read the prequel book leading up to this, so I'm sure I have a more robust understanding of these characters than the average viewer might, but that's okay. This is my experience with the film, and so that's what I can talk about here. But this is one of the more underrated Star Wars films, in my opinion, and it is definitely worthy of a second viewing if you've not watched it more than once. I love this film. The characters are awesome. Cannot recommend this one enough. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, directed by Gareth Edwards. As we wind down here and getting closer to the current year, you'll notice that there's a ton of action movies in here and a ton of superhero films, but I feel like the superhero film has just taken a step up recently, and so I don't have any problem putting this in here because it is just emotionally devastating at points. Like, it is excellent. This is Logan, and this one is directed by James Mangold. So this is basically the conclusion of Logan's story from X-Men, Wolverine, of course. And so this is just another one that you get that like daddy-daughter thing going on here that you guys, if you watch me at all, you know I'm a sucker for. And I watched this again after I had my daughter for the first time, and so it just hit me in a way I did not expect at all. The action sequences are incredible. The use of color on this, the 4K disc looks amazing thanks to the use of color here. This is a film that is just top tier superhero film for me. One of my favorites, period, regardless of genre. I love this movie. So Logan from 2016, directed by James Mangold, just one of the best superhero movies out there. I would say there might be some recency bias going on here, but these are newer films, so that's just the way it has to be. This is one that we watched was it this year, or I think it was last year, late last year, for the first time, and it blew me away and it blew my wife away. This is Avengers Infinity War, and this is directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. So this is, I'm going to say it again, it is one of the greatest superhero films I've ever seen. The ending to this was by far the best ending of a superhero film that I've seen, and I just couldn't believe it went the places that it did. Now, mind you, I've still yet to see Endgame, and so that one is won't be on this list because I've not seen it, obviously, but I am very excited to get to Endgame. This film was a shocker to me. I didn't expect much from it because going into it, I feel like I never really heard a ton about it, but I was wrong. This is excellent. This is so good. So Avengers Infinity War is my favorite, I think, of the Avengers films, so far at least, and just shocked me. I did not expect to love it as much as I did. So from 2017, Avengers Infinity War, directed by Joe and Anthony Russo. So I'm just realizing now that I messed up my years a little bit there, but I've been filming for like almost an hour and a half, so excuse me for making that mistake. But that was 2018. So for 2019, I have a film that is super divisive, but one that I happen to fall on the side that thinks this is one of the best superhero movies ever. This is Joker. And this is directed by Todd Phillips. So I've already mentioned Joaquin Phoenix in this video, but he's just one of my favorites. The range on this guy is incredible, and that's shown so well here. This is just a great look at kind of like a mental health issues and how they are handled by some and how they're handled by the state. And so like it is just a really well done, intelligent, dark, gruesome film. The violence in this kind of comes out of nowhere, and it just shocked me. Thinking of the moments, I don't want to give any spoilers, I guess, but there's just some moments that are completely unexpected in the way that they go down they work so well because of it. So I know that Joker is not for everyone, but it absolutely was for me. So I am putting Joker in my 2019 slot, directed by Todd Phillips. For 2020, this is a movie that I watched earlier this year, and I cried for like the entirety of this film. Like, it is so ridiculous how often I cry, but this one was just so moving to me. Another one directed by Dan Scanlon, and another animated Disney Pixar film. This is Onward. So this movie is, I know it's often compared to On the Road, but I've never read or seen On the Road, so I can't really compare it. But basically, we have these two brothers who are their father died when they were younger, and they have this magical staff that is supposed to bring their father back. And so they are trying to do what they can to have a day with him. And of course, they're going to run into all these issues. But this is one of the most beautiful, moving films I've seen in a very long time. Like, I almost want to get choked up just talking about it, because the relationship here is just so heartwarming. Their father died, and so the older brother basically becomes like a father figure again. Like, I want to get, like, I'm choking myself up because it's just beautiful. And so he becomes a father figure to try to help his younger brother get through life. And it takes a while, but that relationship it just grows throughout the film. And the ending of this is so moving and heartwarming. It's just another reason to love film. Onward is beautiful. This is why this has to be my 2020 pick, directed by Dan Scanlon, Onward. Last but not least, the only one I do not yet have a physical copy of because they are taking their sweet time releasing it. I will say I do have it pre-ordered on Amazon coming later this year. I am talking, of course, about Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I know what you might be thinking. Is this a cheat because this movie came out years ago and this is just a new edit? No, this is a completely different movie than what we saw back in theaters in whenever it was, 2016, 2017. Zack Snyder's Justice League was so well done. I was so surprised how much I liked this. I planned to do that movie because it's like a 4-hour movie. I planned to do it over multiple days. I sat down for like parts 1 through 3, and then took maybe like a half an hour break or something, and then came back and finished the movie. It was just such a better experience than the original Justice League, which honestly, I didn't even hate the original Justice League, but this is a completely different movie. We get like almost like new characters, it feels like, because you're starting to get more motivation, more backstory on some of these characters in this that you just don't get with the original. So this is an epic action film that I cannot wait to have on 4K because I want to watch it again. Even though it is super long, I love these characters. I am a huge DC Extended Universe supporter. I've liked everything I've seen from them in one way or another, in varying degrees, of course. But for my money, nothing does it better than Zack Snyder's Justice League. So that has to be my pick for my 35th year in existence from 2021, Zack Snyder's Justice League. All right, guys, this was super long, and so if you are still here watching this, thank you so much. I really appreciate that support. But like I said, let me know down in the comments below, what is your favorite movie from the year you were born? Put those answers down below so it can give me some good recommendations to watch along the way. But also let me know if there was any here that you agreed with, any that you disagreed with. I'm sure you will, because I have some weird picks along the way here, but it is what it is. So yeah, again, maybe I'll do this next year and I'll have completely new picks. One idea for next year is to kind of go like reverse, so 36 years at that point prior to when I was born, and pick my favorites. I think that might be fun. But anyway, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like down below. That really helps me out. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media, be it books, movies, video games, manga, graphic novels, collectibles. If it's media related, I'm interested in it. And if you are too, you might consider subscribing. So again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for spending my 35th birthday with me. If you've made it this far, you are a remarkable human being. So thank you for that. But that's going to do it for today, guys. So again, thank you all so much for watching. And I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.